What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and we have a ton of head coach updates today, and probably the most important, because we expect him to be at the top of our list, is that Mike Vrabel's tenure as the consultant for the Cleveland Browns has officially ended or expired, and thus means that he's available and he's open immediately to start conducting head coach interviews. And we do have some details around what he's looking for, what he's actually prioritizing, according to The Athletic, and may give some insight into what's going on. But I know in this early run of news, it seems like our team, the New York Jets, as well as the Saints, would be essentially the front runners of aggressively pursuing him. And then we'll see how things shake out. I know there's been strong connection to the Raiders, for example, now, but listen to what they expect the prioritization to be for him. So it mentions he's expected to prioritize openings with a positive ownership situation in teams with either a quality quarterback or a path to getting one in the near future. And so you can reasonably look at both of those two remarks and say that positive ownership, Jets aren't necessarily on that list. Granted, we've already gotten the previous comments that he's willing to come in and view the situation for himself and determine that. And then the second piece, either having a quarterback in play or having one that we can go obtain. And this one's kind of up in the air, right? It really determines how he evaluates this quarterback room, where you have the young gun in Jordan Travis still coming off a significant injury. If he wasn't a guy that Mike Vrabel would have loved coming out of the draft as either a potential starting quarterback or even a developmental option, then that's not going to entice him. You can make the argument that Tyrod Taylor would be that guy, and I would say there's a legit argument there for sure, but between durability and also the age, you're not looking at him being your long-term answer either. And then, of course, in the draft, we may creep up to as high as I think we can go to like the third or fourth pick, just because we lose some of those strength of schedule breakers if things don't go our way. You're still out of the running, right? Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are universally kind of the only first round worthy quarterbacks in this draft, and we really expect both of them to go within the top 3 picks. So what do? You either make a massive trade up, or you end up trying to sell him on what Aaron Rodgers maybe could be with his development of the team and how Mike Vrabel probably envisions being able to turn this roster around immediately, right? More questions than answers with that whole situation, but man, I can't wait to see if we can get him in ASAP, because outside of whatever accolades, outside of whatever statistical production and win-loss records and all that kind of stuff, Mike Vrabel is one of those guys that you understand the personality, if you will. You understand the mentality and the play style behind the teams that he has ownership of. And even if that doesn't always result in double-digit wins, if it's not resulting in blowout victories, you have that. And same thing with Rex Ryan, who we'll talk about here in a moment, right? But you know, and you hear it from your opponents, right? When you're going through press conferences and stuff, they know the defense is going to be a problem for the offense if they're not on their P's and Q's, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and they know that we're going to be looking to put helmets to chest, right? In other words, boots to behinds. We're going to look to, of course, dominate on the ground, and we want explosive plays through the air. So definitely more of a defensive guy, of course, but I think you see that mentality bleed over to the offense as well, where he's not looking to get guys that are going to just bowl over anytime, the defense is maybe a little bit more aggressive than you'd like them to be, right? He wants your A.J. Browns of the world. He wants your Delanie Walkers, right? I think Malachi Corley would be the kind of guy that Mike Vrabel could fall in love with and want to turn into an immediate asset, unlike what we've seen here in his rookie year. So for me, the biggest piece walking away from Vrabel potentially coming in within a week or two is that I need that personality instilled, right? If he becomes our head coach, that's immediately the first thing that's going to come to my mind, because right now we don't have an identity. Or you can make the argument, right, that our identity is that of a rug. We fully expect people to not only step on us, we're inviting it, right? And we don't ever seem to really do anything about it. There's not that there needs to be wholesale changes, but you never really see the turnaround, right? Once things go wrong, they stay that way. And you might get the occasional, broken clock being right twice a day. But outside of that, generally, we can't pull ourselves out of a funk. And we generally start in a funk to begin with, right? Which is why we're here in this whole place. But looking forward to news that comes out hopefully pretty soon about Vrabel and his interest in getting him in the building here. The other two names that we found out about is that Ron Rivera is expected to report an interview with the New York Jets, former two-time coach of the year, obviously Super Bowl runner-up. One of the things that I find interesting, of course, is that we have to look at these guys that are going to be out of the league, right, per rules, so we're not tampering. But most of these guys tend to be defensive guys because the offensive people can find a way to hang around, right? And maybe there's a bit of ego here, right, where they didn't want to take a DC role or anything like that. But I don't love the prospects of Ron Rivera or Rex Ryan necessarily as much as maybe I would have a couple years ago. And really, this is based on recency bias. You take a look at Dan Quinn being able to come in and turn that organization around right away. Obviously, it helps having a high caliber pick like Jaden Daniels, but you never know what a rookie will look like, no matter the position, but especially at quarterback. But he assembled a strong staff. He built a culture. He enforced a tone, right? They have a personality / identity there in Washington. These are all things that many people expect Ron Rivera to be able to accomplish. And so to see him fail at that in 4 years after being, eschewed out of the Panthers organization, it doesn't give me a ton of hope. And same thing kind of with Rex Ryan, right? I've talked about this a number of times. Rex Ryan, respect the job he did, respect the results that he got, but it always felt to me like he did his best job capitalizing on a veteran heavy roster. And when we tried to when we started needing to rely more on rookies, when we started needed to relying more on guys that should have been developing over the course of a year or two, you really saw things flounder. And then, of course, the lack of offensive expertise really started to hurt him as well, as we couldn't get Mark Sanchez developed. We started seeing Santonio Holmes wreck things, right? We started to see pieces go away like Chris Ivory, Sean Green, etc. So it really just crumbled completely, and it never felt like Rex Ryan had a solid plan to work things out. Also, it always felt like his teams were purely like emotional and energy driven, and so when we didn't have the headlines, when we didn't have the storylines going into a particular game, it just felt like we got mollywopped. So I don't know. Ultimately, when I look at Ron Rivera, when I look at Rex Ryan, it'll be nice to have them in. It'll be nice to maybe be able to pick the brains and get that idea of what they think about the current status of the defense, right? And maybe we don't get to know how they feel like they can turn it around or what it takes to get it back on track. But this just feels like one of those situations where you're putting the fillers out. Maybe they do actually have a strong interview, right? But I don't think anybody's necessarily expecting that. And in the token, again, it's just kind of information gathering, much like you got with some of the early GM interview names. So I don't expect these guys to be strong candidates. But I would love to be pleasantly surprised. But again, that's just my personal thoughts here. Let me know what you guys ultimately think, though. Obviously, I think 99% of us are rocking with Vrabel right now in terms of the trio that we just mentioned. I still would definitely love an offensive guy, but, I'm understanding a lot of those guys don't have previous head coach experience, for one. And two, a lot of people feel like we haven't done as well, if not worse, when we tried to go the offensive route. Think that's kind of a poor argument. But yeah, let me know what you guys ultimately think, right? This is music to my ears. Finally, we're getting the ball rolling on both sides. It's been primarily GM oriented so far. So this is pretty refreshing. But what you guys think? I'll catch you again. Peace.